Welcome. I'm Riley Karsh.
I'm Tova Kopan.
We are thrilled to bring you the We Go Boldly podcast.
Let's talk big burning questions, life changes, and maybe a bit of personal business.
Let's be bold and brave together. Are you ready?
I am. Here comes the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Go Boldly, the podcast. It is interview day, and I have to tell you, I am beyond excited about our guests. I know I'm going to babble. I know I'm going to go over things. Like, this is a person we've met and talked to a few times and is now our best friend forever. BFFs. So I am super excited about interview day today. Before we dive into all that goodness, it's snowing here. My heater is doing crazy things. I live in a 100-year-old house. I'm a little frazzled, people. I'm a little bit frazzled. However, I am also excited because I set myself up for success this morning. I was out putting my kids to school. I don't know what that means. Dropping my kids off at school. And I was like, oh man, I have like 8,000 doctor's appointments to make. I really don't feel like it. I'm never going to get it done. Blah, blah. I was like being major negative about this. And then I came home and I had a sip of coffee and then I called all the doctors and made all the appointments except for one, which I have to call back tomorrow. And then I did 2 yoga sessions. So I was really like breaking things down this morning. As you can tell now, I'm full of the energy and the wildness.
So you are fully caffeinated.
I am well caffeinated today, but that's me. Let's say hello to my fantastical, magical, wonderful, Christmas themed co-host, Tova. How are you today, Tova? What's happening?
I am doing well. It is snowing. That is
I know
exciting.
I said that in a different tone of voice. I just want to say.
Yeah,
I was like,
is.
it's snowing.
I mean, it's flurries and they're not going to stick on anything, but I'm still excited to see them. You are going to be listening to this after Hanukkah is over, but for those of us who are recording, it is the first day of Hanukkah. So I also had a busy morning. I went for a walk first thing. I did not do yoga because I'm about a week behind you on our yoga challenge.
That's okay. You'll get there.
I'll get there. I'll get there. And then I went to Trader Joe's because I was like, I need the latkes, and I did buy some potatoes. So time will tell. At the time you're listening, we will know whether I decide to attempt to make them myself, or if I just use the frozen ones from Trader Joe's that are delicious.
Are they? I haven't tried them. I meant to ask you about that.
They're fantastic.
They're
and
good?
My kids
Okay.
eat them. We eat them all year long.
Like regularly. I love a latke, so I'm happy to eat
but I
them
think
anytime.
what I might do is instead of throwing them in the oven, I may fry them and then we'll just like say I sort of cooked them.
Do you do them in the air fryer? I'm totally off topic now. I just want information.
Yes, I do them in the air fryer.
Okay.
But I also feel like latkes are something that I'm fully capable of making.
Absolutely.
I just don't know that I'm capable of making them today.
Yeah. No, I'm making them Sunday with my daughter. She wants to make them, so
yeah. Well, so maybe we'll make them some other day. But we're having people over tonight.
Nice.
The elf brought our first 2 candles. We are a multicultural household. When the elf on the shelf is bringing our Hanukkah candles,
I see nothing wrong with that.
We are ready to rock and roll. But I'm also excited for our guest.
Yeah, and it actually like makes my heart feel good to hear all those stories. So, which is our topic, right? How is your heart? And before I introduce our guest, who is, like I said, somebody I'm super excited for you guys to meet and to talk to today, I want you all to like get in the frame of mind of thinking about how is your heart? Have you asked yourself today? Have you asked anyone else today? If not, it's a great time to think about it. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest for today. Her name is Jaime Legagneur. I got it right, and I'm very excited. She is somebody we met when we were at Moms 2.0 last year, or I guess it was this year, but it feels like last year already. And she's just a fantastic human being. So let me read a little bit of her bio for you guys so you get to know a little bit about her, and then we'll say hi. So like I said, producer Jaime Legagneur has grown her podcast production house and consultancy firm, Flintstone Media, since 2014. She is a podcast host, producer, coach, speaker, and industry expert who has been the recipient of various awards, including Podfest's 2020 High Achiever Award, a 2022 Gold Crushie from the Craft Beer Marketing Award, which sounds amazing for so many reasons, and being featured in Podcast Magazine's 40 Over 40 and podcasting list for 2022. She hosts Podcasting Your Brand to help others build their brands through the power of podcasting. And she is the proud founder of the Power Moms Network, which empowers moms to lift the world. All of these things make my heart feel good and full. So, welcome to the show, Jaime. We're so excited to have you. And, we're just thrilled to have this conversation with you.
Thank you for having me. And now I am so hungry for latkes. It's not even funny. I haven't had those probably since like middle school or maybe high school. Okay. And I'm like now drooling.
Well, apparently Trader Joe's has good ones. So if
I'm headed there right after as soon as we're done recording, I'm in the car.
Yeah. And I will say, to talk about what makes my heart filled is that when Trader Joe's is well stocked, right? Yes. So sometimes you go and you're like, oh no. And they had everything. They had latkes. They had the peppermint JoJo's that I want to get. Like they had it all. And
it's amazing.
My heart was full.
I love how the multiculturalism just keeps popping up.
Right? All the way through.
Did you eat the latkes and then drink like peppermint cocoa? Like, what do you?
I mean, it is.
I mean, they go together.
That's awesome. Likely to happen. I am as I'm talking to you, right behind you is a holiday themed. I'll send you a picture of a table. My son made a big Lego house that's like a holiday Lego house, and there's lights and berries and trees. Those like new trendy like bottle washing trees
those bottle scrub, the scrub top things. Those are cute.
And right behind them is my new battery operated electric menorah that I got this year so it could sit in my window.
Nice.
Love it because amazing. Light and joy is good.
Mm-hmm. You know, and Legos are also good. I have some behind me as well. So Legos are also very good.
Absolutely. Also light and joy, frankly.
Yes. And being good to your heart is also very good.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tova.
Well, I was going to say we always jump in with easy questions. So we're just going to do the same thing with you. So our first question for you, because I know we could literally just have a conversation and ask more questions, but
we almost forgot to start recording. We were having fun just chatting.
I'm going to make us ask some questions.
Do it.
How is your heart?
Oh, my heart is all over the place these days. Let me tell you, when I remembered that I was doing this interview today, I was like, this is so apropos because I literally sent a message to my therapist yesterday saying, I'm too emotional to have therapy today. I'm like, I can't handle it today. It was too much going on. I'm like, I had a conversation with my son that brought up all these other things, and I've been blah blah blah. So I canceled it. So I woke up this morning to a text message from her saying, hey, I have an opening at 2. Do you want to do it today? I'm like, yes. Now I feel more able to like handle it. I needed to process a little of the chaos and let a little bit go. And now I can actually like deal with it. So it's a little crazy with the holidays and everything else. I'd say my heart is just all over the place. In some ways, it's really good because I have some people in my life who have come into my life since this time last year, who've made an incredible impact. That would be my boyfriend and his family. And so the way that they've filled my heart has been incredible. In fact, his mother was the phone call that I made when I was like, losing my mind. Like I need you, Mom. And she came through with a great call. So in those respects, it's really good. Also really good. My son, watching him flourish. He made honor roll recently, and he wants to get back into theater, and he's asking about theater classes again. And so just seeing him flourish in those ways makes me happy. But I tell you, there's so much about my heart that is still so heavy. A few years ago, a whole bunch of childhood trauma just like bubbled up, and it was like it hit me in the face when I was smack dab in the middle of like really moving forward and doing awesome things and feeling like I'm in my zone. And then all of a sudden, all this crap from childhood came up. And so going through that mess has been difficult, but necessary. And the healing is not easy. It hurts a lot of the time. I often compare it to a mud run in that it's like, it feels like you're just trudging along and you're stuck and you're gotta like pull your boots out of the ground and you're just ugh. But once you get out of it, like it still hurts and you're sore, but your arms are up and you're excited because you're crossing the finish line. And I haven't crossed the finish line yet for the healing, but I'm on my way. So like I said, my heart's all over the place.
Well, and I hate to tell you this. Um,
No, you
healing
don't.
is
I know exactly
healing.
what she's gonna
You
say.
know what I'm going to say, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Healing is cyclical.
Hmm.
So we
Mhm.
feel like it's this great straight line and you're going to
Yeah.
cross over the finish line. And it's
No.
more like a mud run where you think you see the finish line and you're running towards it, and then
It's just
another
it's
obstacle,
Yeah,
a
someone comes
another.
up
checkpoint
to
along
say,
the way.
"Hey, heat one's over. Good
Yeah,
job." You're like, "Damn
exactly.
Yeah,
it.
exactly. And
We'll
you're
see
like,
you
oh, wait,
tomorrow morning.
Can I at
where's
least
the
get a
other
beer or something?"
obstacle?
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
no,
I
so
only say that because that was a lesson that I keep having to learn over and over, where
Yeah.
it's just like, no, once I forgive this person, I'm going to be done. And then I can forgive
you can
them. And
check it off
it's
your
like,
list.
yeah,
Just
just
check it
check it
off.
off my list.
Love
And
it.
then I was like, oh, okay. That's
Not
not
how
how
it
it
works.
works.
I tend to
No.
think of it, and I've said this on the show before. I'm sure I'll say it again because it really resonates with me. I tend to think of it as more of a spiral, right? Like you're not going in circles, you're not going in a
Yeah.
straight line, but you are sort of spiraling. And we think of spiraling as this, like, oh no, I'm going down the drain and it's so terrible. But you can spiral up, right? Like I think
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
generally spiraling up. And so even though it feels like steps backwards because maybe it's like a level above and yet you're like kind of
Right.
re-experiencing the trauma that you've had or like the hard times or things that have come up in your life or things about yourself that you just aren't like particularly happy with, and they
Right.
come back and they come back and they come back, but each time it's a little bit easier and each time it's a
Yeah.
little bit softer and you have more tools and you're better prepared. Now, I'm not
Well,
saying it can't happen later, like trauma comes when it comes, but
It's for me,
yeah.
it's more of a Jeremy Bearimy. I don't know if you
yeah.
ever watched The Good
Yes.
Place,
Oh my God. I
right?
love the good
So
place.
it's
I
Yeah.
love
like,
it.
oh,
I love
wait,
it.
I
Love
was
it. Love
here
it. Jeremy
before and
Bearimy
I'm
so
here
great.
again. But at
Mhm.
least you have the memories of the time you were there before and you're like, but I got through it,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's when you're healing, you even if you have to heal the same wound again, you know you can, because
Right.
once you do it one time, you're like, okay, I can do
Right.
this again.
Yeah.
Right, right. So
Yeah.
for anyone who's like, what is Jeremy Bearimy? It's like imagine writing the name Jeremy Bearimy and a cursive line and it's a squiggle. And that's very much true because I think two things are happening. As I'm going along the Jeremy Bearimy line, like what happens is when I clear something up, I heal something, I figure something out, I come to a healing place, but because I've cleared that clutter, right? When it clears, all of a sudden I can see all the other crap that's behind it. And all of a sudden I go on a Jeremy Bearimy loop and I'm like, ah, I gotta deal with that other thing. So
Right.
that's one of the things that happens is like clearing away some clutter reveals the other stuff that I have to deal with. But it's good because I need to deal with it. And it's one thing at a time. And the other thing that I think is happening, and I don't know if this is true for everybody, but certainly when you're someone who's like me, who's had trouble with boundaries and has had very off terrible boundaries in her life, like as I learn how those boundaries have been created deficits for me and things like that and difficulties, putting or not lack of boundaries, I should say, putting those boundaries in place, like for people, the people who are getting whatever they wanted from me, they don't like that. And so the pushback, it's very heartbreaking to deal with. You know, you have people who
Mhm.
are your family and they love you, but they love the side of you that gives them everything and that they want. And so when you start putting up those boundaries, it's like, man, the pushback is real. And it's just that's another thing that I didn't anticipate was going to happen. And it's happening right in my face. Like I couldn't imagine going to Thanksgiving dinner at my family's place because I knew all I was going to hear was all this pushback about these boundaries that I've been putting up. So those two things are yeah, you're right. It is cyclical. It's a process. It never ends. There's a hill on the other side of every other one.
Yep.
What I will say that's nice as someone who also wasn't great with boundaries is that you also learn the people who knew that you couldn't set boundaries and so they set them for you. and
Mm.
like the people who are so happy that you've come to this place.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've read the book The Year of Yes by
Mm-mm.
Shonda Rhimes. Oh, it's so good. I'm a big fan. I read
Mm.
it every year.
Okay.
And she, even though it's about the year of yes, there's a lot of saying no when you're saying yes to yourself, right?
Okay.
There's a lot of setting boundaries.
So it's
And
not like
she
if I ask you for latkes, you're going to say, yes, Jemmy, I will send you latkes. It's not like that. Okay, just
It's
checking.
more
yes,
yes to yourself, less
Okay,
yes to
just checking,
yes
yourself.
to
just
everyone
checking,
And
just
else.
checking.
it's, I mean, there is some yes to other people in some
Yeah.
examples, but I mean, listen, if I start making them well, like I'll ship some down to you.
I was going to say, Tova's now sending you several boxes of
I
latkes.
know, because of my boundaries, because of my
Yes.
good
Yes.
boundaries. Um, but she talks about a story with a good friend who she thought was a good friend. And once she
Mm-hmm.
Right.
starts setting boundaries, she realizes that not only are they not a good friend, but she probably told a story in her mind as to how great this person was
Yeah.
that wasn't accurate, which I have a great tendency to do as well.
Yeah.
And her other friends were like, oh, yeah, we were kind of wondering when this was going to happen. Like when
Mm.
you, as
They
part of your
saw the
year of
writing on the
yes,
wall.
Yeah.
yeah, you were going to see this. So I think that, yes, you get to know the people when you set boundaries that are upset about your boundaries because
Yeah.
they liked the fact that they could take advantage of you.
Yeah.
But you also get to know those people who are there to celebrate that you're learning to set boundaries.
Yeah. They're rooting
Yes.
you on along the way for
A
sure.
Yeah.
100%, a
Yeah.
100%, to the point where, and okay, so all's good with the boyfriend, love him to pieces. We're gonna get married one day. He may not know that yet, but I'm saying, I'm preaching it. So I love him to pieces. But one day I was really mad at him, right? And I was actually talking to his mother about why I was mad at him. And his mother was like, break up with him. You need to teach him a lesson, set a boundary, da 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 da. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this woman she's the real deal. And as soon as you say that, that's exactly who I'm reminded of, is someone who, even when it was her own son on the line,
Right.
she knew that it was the right thing to do to encourage a healthy boundary for me to set. So you're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
Boundaries are hard. Boundaries are hard for ourselves, they're hard for other people. And at the same time, they are liberating in so
Mm-hmm.
many ways, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you set the boundary. And now I'm the kind of person who had like castle walls, right? Like you were not getting past my boundaries to the point where, like,
With a moat.
yeah, no, there were alligators in the moat. Like it was a whole
And
deal.
fire.
Which I did lots of therapy to work on. Let's just put it out there. Um, but they are essential for our heart health, right? Like you
Mhm.
can't have a peaceful, content, happy, healthy, positive, whatever the word you want to use, heart if you are
Yes.
not setting boundaries because yeah,
Yes.
you're just spreading yourself everywhere, even for
Yes.
yourself, right? Like you're not doing the things for you that you need to be doing.
Right.
So I want to ask you about the difference between asking yourself or asking someone else for that matter, how is your heart and how are you? Because
Mm.
we throw that away every day. We're like, how are you? I mean, I just did it introducing the show. I was like, hey, Tova,
Yeah.
how are you? Um, and because we're such good friends, I actually want to know how she is. So, like, I think
Right.
she knows what that means from me.
Yeah, you
But
care
if,
about the latkes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But if I was at the grocery store, now again, everyone knows I ask about people's personal lives. But like, if I was a normal person and I was at the grocery store and I was like, hey, how are
That's a
you?
normal person.
People would be like, "Oh, I'm fine, thanks." Right? So what
Right.
how do you feel about the difference between those two thoughts and questions, and how do you think you could incorporate that into your life?
Oh, that is such a good question because it's not something that I think is reflected on enough. But you're right. Like the question of how are you, it's really situational, who you're talking to and everything else. Because if it's, but even though it's situational, and I might be more apt to say a little bit more to someone I know very well,
Mm,
be honest with you, I'm probably going to gonna give some fluff answer almost no matter what. It's kind of like the answer of how am I right in this very moment. So how are you? If I've just finished reading, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. But that's all I'm going to say. Like I'm going to talk about how I am in this exact minute. How are you as I'm getting ready to have this awesome interview? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Things are good. Da, 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 da. But you asked me how's my heart, and that's when I got into the real deal of it because no one asked that question. And so when I knew that was going to be what was reflected on today, I'm like, there's so many different ways that I could even answer that question. Is it Is it, or are they asking because they want to check in on a past conversation that we've had? Do they know something that's going on in my life? If so, then let me give them that update. I had a friend call, and I need to call him back, so I didn't answer the phone. I haven't called him back yet. But I had a friend call me the other day, and I know he called because he hasn't heard from me in a couple of weeks. This is unusual, right? So if he were to ask me, how's your heart, or even if you were to ask me how are you, I know that what he's really asking me is how's your heart, and how are you doing, like he really wants to know. So I
Yep.
think that if I were to try to think about it in my own life, um it's more about who am I asking those questions of, and when and why, and be really careful of making sure that people have a safe space. So even if all I really want is the fluff answer, if they decide that they have a need, maybe was the right place at the right time, and they needed someone to talk to, that they know that I can be a safe space. So sometimes you mean it as a fluff answer, sometimes and just want it to be a quick interaction,
Right.
but you always need to be ready for it to be more, because you never know what someone's feeling on the other side. Or
That's true.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we need to take a quick break. So let's do that. And then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about joy and what that means to you. So we'll be right back, everyone. Hey, Tova, you know what I love?
Coffee, definitions, uninterrupted reading time.
Okay, all of those things are true, but I also love maps.
As in Siri, take me to the beach.
Yeah. Also, as in, who am I really and who do I want to be?
Yeah, I figured that's what you meant, but I also have the beach on my mind. So,
Well, we were talking about things we love, so that definitely makes sense. But the map I was thinking about is our Defining You course.
yes, we put together defining you as a way to map where you are and how you want to live your life.
So true. So many people struggle to find their purpose in a busy and noisy world.
That's why we made Defining You, our course meant to guide you to creating your own mission statement.
And there's good news. You can get it now on teachable.com. Find the link on our website at goboldlyinitiative.com/courses, or check out the link on our Instagram bio at Go Boldly Together.
We can't wait to see you there. Now, let's head back to the show.
All right, welcome back to the show. Before the break, we were talking about asking people, how are you? How's your heart? Like, what does that mean? And I want to jump now to thinking about joy and sort of what brings you joy, and have you, or do you know what brings you joy? So how do you figure that out?
Ooh, that's such a great question that I've been exploring a lot in these last couple of years. As I've been dealing with the healing from trauma, I've been trying to think of ways to allow more light into my life and more joy into my life, more joyful moments. And, some of those are the big things, like saying yes to this trip to New York in a couple weeks, be able to go spend Christmas, my first white Christmas. I never had one before. I'm like, yay, that'd be awesome, joyful, make some angels. So it's big things, but it's also little things. Like yesterday, I literally drove to Publix. That's our main supermarket here, very
Mm.
Publix proud. We drove to Publix to get lemon cake. Why? Because dang it, I was having a tough couple of days and I wanted some lemon cake. So sometimes it's something really small like that. And it's everything in between. And I think what I've realized is that it's all about self-care. And what's tricky to learn is what is self-care that's truly self-care, like taking time for yourself, meditating, journaling, taking a nice long shower, giving yourself 15 minutes to have that cup of coffee uninterrupted. Those kinds of things are legitimate self-care, versus stuff that might just give you joy in the moment, like going out and drinking and releasing steam, um, or yelling at somebody right then and there. Like that might might leave you joy in a second, but it's not going to bring you joy overall. And so I think finding joy is so important, and I've been trying to live my life the last decade for that goal. when I started my company back in 2014, um, it was because I discovered this latent ability that I had to help people achieve their goals and do digital marketing. And I didn't realize I knew I had to do that. And it's a long story as to how I figured that out, but I figured that out. And I wanted to build my business doing that. That was only half the reason, though. Well, a third of the reason. Another third of the reason is because I wanted to be a good example to my son about doing some pursuing your dreams. But the other third was I wanted to build a joyful life for myself. And the more that I had to go to work for somebody else every single day who had to decide for me when I could experience joy, meaning if my son had something going on at school, whether or not I was going to end up having to miss it or not, whether or not I could spend an extra 15 minutes sleeping in, whether or not I could wear pajamas all day if I wanted to, whether or not I could run out for the afternoon, decide to do my errands at 2 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock, because that to me is a little bit more comfortable. Whatever those things are, I wanted more autonomy over how to bring joy into my life. So that has been the mission of my reason why I built my business, so I could have my independence and create my own story for that. And so as my son has grown and gone through different stages of life and I've experienced these different stages with him, I mean, we're, gosh, almost 10 years now into my business, and it's only finally now like really feeling like it's coming together and gelling, and my team is coasting and clients are doing well. And it took a while for us to get there, and we're just on the precipice of this joyful goal that I've had. Like I can see in 2024 getting to finally take my son, big vision, finally take my son on a cruise. I've never taken him on a cruise, finally get to take him on a cruise in 2024. That's the goal. But also small things like knowing that whenever I want to go to the movies with him, I can. So it's little things like that, and knowing that anytime he has a day off, he needs has an event going on at school, I can be there. So for me, thinking about what's the most important thing in your life and then centering as much of your life as possible around that. And for me, that was the joy of my son and the flexibility of being able to be with him and spend time with him as much as I needed and wanted to. And so, yeah, that's been the driver of everything.
And I think it's important to recognize like you have worked very hard for 10 years to build this joyful life. And so there's been steps that you've put in place, but then like
Yeah.
significant steps that you've put in place. And it's been like, this huge thing that you've worked towards. But there's also finding joy in, lemon cake from Publix. Like, and I
Yes.
think,
Right.
right, I think it's
And
really
latkes.
yeah, and latkes, right? Or like going to Trader Joe's
By
and
the
being
way,
like,
this isn't
you
now
have
a drinking game. How many
everything.
times did Jimmy say latkes?
Well, and if Trader
Exactly.
Joe's wants to sponsor us, we're
I mean,
open
Oh
and
my gosh.
available.
Um, and I think that like knowing that you can find joy both in how you've created your life, like it can be you can build your life around joy, but also it can be like a favorite song comes on the radio
Right,
and you dance to it and you let yourself
right,
have that moment, right? Like
right.
Yeah.
it can be both. And I think it's interesting, and I love that you talked about how you built your life. You wanted a joyful life because I think um we struggle with the word happy because it's
Mm,
it's like what does that mean? And I
yeah.
think when
Yeah.
you build a joyful life, that doesn't mean it's not going to have its trauma and its healing and its grief, but it can have space for joy. And
Yeah.
that's really um amazing. I don't have a
A-
question.
And
Oh, well,
if
go
I
ahead.
could just say real quick, I think I want to circle back to something we are talking about again before we were talking about boundaries, because sometimes pursuing joy, a lot of the equation is what you bring into your life, but a lot of the equation is also what you keep out of your life. And so, just as a little quick analogy or metaphor, what have you, if there's a sink that's dripping in your house and it's just letting out one drop at a time, but it's going to drive you freaking bananas, and every day it drives you crazy. Every day.
Yeah.
One day you just have this aha moment. You're like, well, why don't I just fix the dang on sink, right? So you just take a screwdriver, whatever. I don't know anything about plumbing, and you tighten the thing.
You do the
right?
thing with
All
the
of a
thing,
sudden,
right?
and all of a sudden the drip is gone. So
Yeah.
now what you've done in that small moment is given yourself relief and gotten rid of all those aggravators. So that for me, that's what boundaries has done. It's allowed me to get rid of the aggravators, and that alone has brought me so much joy.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that people really struggle with, especially with the way our culture is right now, is that
Yeah.
they wait to achieve the goal to allow themselves to feel the joy,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
like you're talking about the lemon cake, these are moments where we are allowed to feel joyful, right? We don't
Yes.
have to get the raise, get the
Yes.
million downloads, get the perfect body, whatever your
Yes.
goal is. Does And perfect body is ridiculous, by the way, but whatever your goal is. Sorry, I just said it and then I was
I
like,
mean, I've
ugh.
got one, but whatever.
Well, right. Amen. Don't we
You're
all?
right.
No, but like, waiting to get to that point to be like, woo, I'm so
Yeah.
happy or I'm so joyful is
Yeah.
very detrimental to your heart health. Like,
It
it's
really
not
is.
gonna lift you up.
And actually I'm learning something. I just had this realization really, really recently, but in the last few days. I had this realization because I've never understood why people in general get excited about certain things like collecting watches or having a shoe collection or going shopping for stuff. Like I've never quite understood it, but I get it now. And here's why I get it. In at least in certain aspects. I get it because since I was a little girl, I've always wanted a charm bracelet. I've never gotten one, right? But long story short, I got a gift card for my birthday, and I said I'm gonna start a Pandora charm bracelet, and so I did, right? And this bracelet, okay, which has been very quickly filled up with a lot of charms, but what the charms are doing, it's not that I'm waiting. I didn't decide I'm gonna wait till I do XYZ before I get this. I said I'm gonna get it now. And I'm filling this with charms that represent little milestones for me because those are the memories that I want. And also, just looking at it on a regular basis, because it's right here on my wrist, it's a constant reminder of the hard work that I've put in because sometimes you have no control over the results, but you still really should pat yourself on the back and congratulate yourself for the hard work that you've put in because you're still winning, right? You're still growing skills, you're still learning something, whatever it is, you're still getting ahead in some way, shape, or form. So celebrate your effort and that you did that. And the number one charm for me on in terms of that on this bracelet is I'll hold it up so you guys can see it even though it's little. I don't know if you guys see it, but it's a little bulldog with
Yeah,
a
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
superhero cape on. And the reason that's so important to me, and it's a French bulldog because my last name is Francais, so but the reason that's so important is because when I was a kid my dad always called me a bulldog in a very good way. He's like, when you sink your teeth into something you don't let go. And for a while with building my business, it was the bulldog mentality. I'm going after it. No one even knew what a podcast was when I first started, and I had to evangelize it. So I was going after it, go after it. And somewhere along the line, the last few years, with a lot of stumbles, falls, people literally stealing my work, those kinds of things, very hard lessons to learn. My bulldog got kind of beaten up, right? And I realized that actually in starting Power Moms Network and in having conversations with people about it and realizing how much is resonating and the mission that I now feel like fully set in my heart that I'm on with it, the bulldog's back, baby. So me getting this charm represented that. Now, all I've done is shifted my mentality. I haven't achieved anything yet, but seeing this bulldog on my bracelet reminds me that I am who I am and of what I can do, and that I've come so far. So another charm on there says, I don't know if I can curse, but it says, keep effing going. And so, yes, celebrating little things, whether it's lemon cakes or latkes or charm bracelets or whatever it is, like it's super important to celebrate little moments too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I would argue, like you said, you haven't achieved anything. And I think that
Riley, your face was so funny.
That's not
that's
accurate.
just nonsense. That's lies.
But achieving that new mental approach is achieving something,
Absolutely.
right? And I think that's why, we often, and this is one thing that this season has done for me. And we create these seasons, and then we always are like, what is the lesson I'm going to learn in this season? Because there's always a secret one. It's learning, especially this time of year, but all the time, that I really try not to judge my day at the end of the day on how productive I was, on how many things I checked off my list. But I want to listen to the question, how is my heart? And answer that at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so you have achieved a lot simply by recognizing that your approach and mindset got beaten down over the last few years, and you needed to re-engage in the person that you really are.
Yeah.
That is an achievement.
Yes. It is.
And I was just gonna say real quick, I think asking myself that question of how is my heart yesterday was the exact right move for me to make. And that's what made me think, allowed me to forgive myself and not have any guilt at all about putting aside the work that I had planned to do yesterday, recognizing that like, no, this needs to be a mental health day. Like, let's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It needs to be a mental health day. And just giving myself permission to put all that stuff aside was super important. But it's because I asked myself, how's my heart today? But then I also answered it honestly and then acted appropriately.
Right. And all of those steps are like an essential part of the process, right? You ask the question, but then pay attention to the answer and then follow through, right?
Yeah.
We do need to take another quick break. When we come back, I want to expand on this concept, and I'll give you a second to think about it. But we like to talk about how we want our lives to look in 5, 10, 15 years. As a culture, we make 5-year plans, all these things. And what I want us to start thinking about as a community is, how do I want to feel in 10 years? Not like what do I want to own or what successes do I want to check off my checklist? How do I want to feel about myself, about the world I've created around me, all of those things. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we'll hear what you have to say about that. So we'll be right back, everyone.
Know what I really love to do?
Take baths, go for walks, read, drink margaritas, hike.
Yeah, not what I was referring to. We're recording a commercial right now.
I do, but I'm thinking outside the box, being adaptable.
As I was saying, what I love to do is host our live monthly workshops.
Oh, right. That's what we were talking about. Me too. They are a lot of fun to put together and host every month. And we can bring margaritas, so...
Join us for live conversation as we get a bit deeper into topics near and dear to our hearts. We go through everything from self-care to setting boundaries.
We share coaching tips, practical advice, and take questions from the audience. It's a whole lot of fun.
Sign up for our newsletter today at goboldlyinitiative.com/contact to make sure you hear about all the upcoming Go Boldly workshops.
You definitely don't want to miss out. Now, back to that show. Welcome back to the show. Before the break, I was asking you, Jaime, about how you'd like to feel in, 5, 10, 15 years, whatever time frame makes sense for you.
Well, I love that joy word we were talking about just a minute ago. I think I'll add also peace and contentment. And I want to feel like in 10 years, like and this isn't to imply that I don't feel like I matter. I'm not having a mental health crisis, and not that's mean. But I want to feel like in 10 years, I want to look back and be like, my life mattered. Like I made a big difference. Again, going back to Power Moms, I feel like that's the calling and that's the thing. So I want to look back and say, like, I have a legacy of impact of thousands of women I've left a footprint on, in a very good way. That's what I'm hoping for. And then on a personal level, I'm hoping, honest to God, just for peace in my heart. That means that the relationships that are supposed to be in my life are in my life, and the relationships that are not supposed to be in my life are no longer in my life, and that there's contentment all around in that situation. And I know that's kind of a high, a high wish to ask for, but that's what I hope for. I hope that in 10 years, again, like I said, my husband, who doesn't know he's going to be my husband, and I are living
I can't wait for him to listen to this.
I'm gonna be living a life happily, as partners, supporting one another. One where my son feels like he understands finally what family really is all about, and where I feel like there's little to no chaos in my life, because Lord knows I've been had phases of it. I felt like I'm in a tornado.
Yeah.
So that's what I want. I want to feel like I'm not waking up every day worried about all the pieces I have to find and put together to survive that day, whether it's financially or otherwise. And instead, I can wake up every day and think about the ways that I can continue to grow and flourish and be productive and contributory to the society.
Mm.
Well, what I like and love about that answer, we've asked a lot of women this season, how they want to feel, and a lot of women do say peaceful, right? A lot of people, a lot of women want, and contentment and peace. And I don't know if it's that we're hitting them in a very busy time of their lives,
Mm-hmm.
or what that is what we're drawn to. But I like that you then went further because you know what peace looks like to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Right.
think that is so important, and get really, granular. Like what does that mean to have peace in my life? Because I
Yeah.
think that it's really easy for, not easy, but it's easier for somebody to say, "Oh, I want peace, in the next 10 years." But like what does that look like to you? And
Mm-hmm.
so the fact that you can name it and you can say, this is what it looks like to me. It looks like
Right.
financial security and less chaos and a
Right.
supportive spouse and all of these things, I think empowers you and the universe to sort of make that happen in
Yeah.
Yes.
a way that
Yeah.
if you're more, well, just, peace, and you don't explain it. So that's sort of encouraging all of us to think where we want to be in 10 years and
Yeah,
then
you like
figure out what.
leveled up.
Yeah, exactly. Like you took
Next
it, you're
My
level up
like,
vision
there.
board is
Yeah,
right
yeah,
here in
yeah.
a good old
yeah,
noggin.
exactly.
But I just keep thinking that. I'm like, oh, she went to the next level with that question. Okay. I better catch up.
So I
Oh, I
just
forgot to add
mentioned.
a dog. There will be a dog in the picture.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Of course, of course. For me as well. I just mentioned, or the universe. Does spirituality come into play in how you're guided throughout your life?
This is definitely the day this was meant to happen, this conversation. I'm telling you, and just to fill in the listeners, like we've been back and forth ping-ponging the date for this for
Oh,
all
yeah.
kinds of life-related reasons.
Yep.
This is the day this was meant to happen, because I'm not even joking. I was walking in from dropping my son off at school this morning. I was thinking, maybe we'll go to church on Sunday. It's been a while. So I have when I was younger, I had a very complicated relationship with God. I did not like him. There's a lot about my life that I hated, and I blamed him for everything. And
Okay.
so, but I came into having a relationship with him in my early to mid 20s. Um, and it's just grown ever since. I found a really amazing, phenomenal church that has embraced me, and and always felt really authentic to what I was looking for in a spiritual home. When I was thinking about Christianity at the time, it was very non-inclusive and all those things, and this church is very inclusive. I mean, inclusive beyond like what you would even like, whoa, progressive to the max. And I loved it, love it, love it.
Yeah.
And so I felt really like at home there, and like I felt like it was really helping me establish and strengthen my relationship with God in the way that I really wanted to. So that has been for several years, and I brought Jordan up in the church, and then when the pandemic hit, church services went virtual, and it just kind of fell apart. So we haven't really been going to church for a while. And it's definitely something that's been on my mind. And this morning it came up in my head again. And I thought, yeah, I really want to go. I think you don't have to go to church to have a relationship with God, to be clear. For me, my community there has been another family, so that's why I want to go. But aside from church itself, I being spiritual and reflecting on the bigger picture, I think is super important for a couple of reasons. One, because you do leave an impact, whether you are imagining some big legacy like I'm hoping for or not, you leave an impact. And so thinking about it in a way that about life in a way that's bigger than you is important, okay? But also because it's important for your sense of self-worth to recognize that you have a purpose, that you weren't accidental, and that there's a spiritual being who loves you. And so when you can accept that into your heart and know that, then there were a lot of defensive thoughts that I had in the way of that that I had to kind of resolve and push aside. When I finally did, it created that place of peace. So when I am looking for peace, that's someplace that I can go. When I'm feeling tormented and in turmoil, I know that I can center myself with prayer or just meditative thoughts and spiritual thoughts. So I think spirituality is very important. And I also want to explore spirituality on a cultural level. Like one of my traveling goals is, man, I'd love to go see some ancient ruins and things and see how people worship different ways. But yeah, spirituality is very important to me. I think we're bigger than ourselves, and the more that we know that, the more that we can feel empowered, but also the more that we can recognize the impact we can have on the world.
Yeah, absolutely. The I have a similar experience, except I'm not Christian necessarily. I don't identify as anything, I guess. But I'm just having a moment. Um, but I like to have revelations on air.
Let's go
Um,
deep on that one, Riley.
you're welcome, everyone. No, but I really it all resonates with me very much in the sense that my personally, my life changed tremendously when I was able to let go of some of those preconceived notions that I had. I
Mhm.
mean, some of them are accurate. Like there's some bad things happening out there in the name of
Yeah.
religion.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it took me quite a bit of effort and thought and conversation and community building to get to the point where I was able to have conversations even about different religions and be like, okay, but not everyone, like hates LGBTQ people, right? Like
Right.
not everyone, like
Right.
that's not happening.
Right.
And I think it is essential for us as humans to know that we are connected. And it's not that we're connected through Jesus or Moses or anyone else. We're connected through each other and through energy and through our values and our behaviors and all these things. And that is
Mhm.
so essential to the health of our heart again, and the health of our spirit and
100%.
soul and who we are as people living in this moment on this planet in this space. And so I just find it like as you were talking about it, I got a wash of peacefulness over me, right? Like it just
Mm.
is a for me anyway, and I think I say this for the other people out there who are like me, who are like, yeah, no,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not associating with this. Because
yeah.
I'm super progressive. Anyone who knows me knows that. And there are things where I'm like, I just can't value wise get on board with that.
Right.
But but it is something that brings me a great deal of peace like you're talking about, and it's a key component to that leveling up of that question of like how do I
Right.
get to that place.
Right.
um I want to ask you about your childhood a little bit, and
Sure.
what I really like to know, because I know, Tova, we need to move on.
I know, it's so
I
sad.
could see your face being like, Riley, get it together. um so, but about like if you were looking back at yourself 10, 15, 20, 30, however many years ago, what would you tell your younger self about caring for your heart? What advice would you give yourself?
Ooh, I would tell myself that blood isn't necessarily thicker than water. And
Mm.
just because somebody is related to you by blood, they shouldn't be letting you define yourself. That the people who treat you with love and kindness are the ones who you should be looking at as a mirror of who you are, not those who do treat you otherwise. And so, as a little kid, my mom and I had a very rocky relationship behind closed doors. And that affected my sense of self-worth in a massive, massive way. And so if I could tell my 7, 8-year-old self anything, I would tell her that your self-love should not come from that resource, even though you're going to get messages the rest of your life that tell you that a mother's love is endless, no one will ever love you like a mother, all these things. And that is a common experience. That's not going to be your experience, and that is okay for you to accept. And instead of letting it break you down, look towards the other people and learn who you are yourself, but also look towards the other people who do love you and do care for you and do treat you right as the example of how you should be expected to be treated for the rest of your life. Because unfortunately, what happened is I learned in a bad way how to allow people to treat me. And so the message that I would want my 7 or 8-year-old self is to reject that lesson and instead know that she is worthwhile from the day that she was born. And so she shouldn't allow anything else to define her or tell her otherwise.
Mm. Such important advice. And for anyone listening, if you're in that headspace where you are not sure of your worth and not sure of your value as a human, I hope you take those words to heart because we've talked about this, Tova, on the show many
Mm-hmm.
times. Your
Mm-hmm.
worth is not defined by anything outside of you. Your worth
Mm-hmm.
exists, and that's the end of the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you don't have to do
100%.
anything. You don't have to win any awards. You don't have to be successful in the, typical expected way of our culture. You just have to breathe and be, and you are valuable and worthwhile. And if you're
100%.
worried that you're not for some reason, feel free to reach out to us. We are here to tell you otherwise. I will say it until, until you're like, can you go away? This is exhausting. Um,
Well, and I think it's also important, especially this time of year. So it's December 20th. A lot of people, whether you celebrate holidays or not, are going to see family in the next
yeah,
couple like weeks, 10, 15 days, because you have off, right? You might have extra
right.
vacation time or your kids are off from school.
Yeah.
And it is so important to recognize that, yes, sometimes your parents can be the place that provide you with that unconditional love and that you see in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're not. And if you're not getting what you need from the people that you think you're supposed to get it from, it's okay to set boundaries. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to say, like, this isn't where I want to be. I want to be with the family that I've created or the friends that are family. Like it is okay to do those things to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that so often we hear in the world, like if somebody wants to set a boundary with a parent, but they're your mom, but they're your
Right.
dad. And it's
Right.
like, and what you need
Uh-uh.
to say back, or at least think back if you don't want to engage with some random person giving you advice, like, yeah, they are my mom and my dad, and they should have done better.
Right.
And if
Yeah.
they would
That,
have done
yeah, like it
better,
makes it even worse.
yeah, like if they would have done better, I wouldn't be in this position of needing to set this boundary. And
Right.
Right.
so, but I think so much is put on a child
Mm.
to be like, but they're your mom, so you can rise above.
Right.
And it's like, no, we have
But I
to
think
take care
that's
of
why,
ourselves.
while looking at the spiritual side of things is so important, and being finding connection there, whatever that means for you, is really important. Mental health is also super important, and being able to find a therapist or somebody who can help guide you,
Yes.
because sometimes there's so many patterns, whether they're your own patterns that you do, or they're patterns in your life, or the patterns of the people around you and how they treat you, that you don't even recognize, right? And you don't even realize that how weird that is, or how not out of the ordinary or not okay
Yeah.
Right.
that is. And so in order to unpack that, in order to understand, like, how to break those patterns and get healthier. Sometimes you just need to talk to a therapist or professional who can help you sort all of that crap out. That's what I'm going to be doing this afternoon.
Well,
I'm in my
it's funny
therapy
you say that.
session because I had a conversation I had with my son the other day, brought up all these things, and I need to I shut me down, and so I need to address them in order to kind of keep moving forward with my life. So
Right.
don't let things like shut you down. Recognize that there's still power within you to fix all of it, whether that means putting up the boundaries, seeking extra help, finding a spiritual zone, whatever it is, like
Or
just
all of that,
all of
all
them.
All of
combined,
that.
Right,
right?
right.
Yeah.
Or
I
getting
also want
Riley to
to
tell you how it is.
Well, I just
I will.
really fast, I'm going to interrupt you,
Yeah,
Riley,
go ahead.
now. So I met with my therapist right before we recorded, and she was asking me,
Therapy Thursdays.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. She was asking me about this guy that I think dating is the right way to describe it that we're doing.
Yeah.
And if I saw red flags, like, and she's like, I don't want to save that, but like for lack of a better term. And I said, no, I said, but I've seen red flags like just this week in myself because he is in a funk. And now he is very self-aware. So he's like, I'm in a funk, right? Like he
Right.
doesn't, I'm not having to like read the tea leaves here. He's
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, I'm in a funk. And I had to very like loudly tell myself that it is not my job to fix his funk. Like
Right.
he is a capable person. He is a grown man. He has been here before. He knows what he needs. And that doesn't mean that like, listen, he came over for like, I made apple pie for my son's birthday and he was like, oh, can I have a slice? I like it. And I was like, yes, of course, come over. Like
Mhm.
that is a nice way to show up for him, but like it's not my job to fix his funk.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that was a red flag that I saw in myself that I
Right.
was, but she was very proud of me that I recognized it and was like, no, no, you don't have to do that. That's not your job. And so, yes, the moral of the story is go to therapy, I think, basically.
Always. That's always the moral of the story. Go to therapy or, join one of our groups also.
There
That's
you go.
Yes.
There you go.
forever
Yep.
gonna say
Yep.
that. Um, we do need to wrap up. I have so many things to
I
say,
know. I
and
have
I'm
so
gonna
many
just
things to
like
say.
we're gonna have
I'm
you on
having a
again,
great
Jemmy.
time.
Jemmy, you're coming on the show again. I'm sorry.
All right,
I'm not
done.
Yep.
sorry. But we have to move on to our rapid response questions. Tova, you're gonna take the
Yes. Oh,
reins
yes.
Yes.
today on the rapid
So
response.
I know you know what we do, but the way it works is we have these 5 questions. They are lighter questions, hopefully a way for people to get to know you in sort of a lighter way.
Mhm.
Okay.
I do not ask follow-up questions. Hopefully you can answer it in not like one word, but in a concise manner.
Mhm.
Um, and I will not ask follow-up questions, and neither will Riley, even though we both want to. So if you are ready with our bold questions,
Mhm.
here we go. So our first question, what do you do when you first get up in the morning?
When I first get up in the morning, I take my anti-anxiety medication.
Nice. I love it. Nice.
And then I have a cup of coffee because if I do them in reverse, I'm in trouble.
That's fantastic.
You're like, I'm too anxious to take it
Right.
now.
Right.
That's awesome. What, next question. What is your favorite movie?
Oh my God. My favorite movie is The Never-Ending Story. If anybody's
Oh my
listening who
God.
hasn't seen this yet, please, for the love of God,
Are there people
become
who haven't seen
human
it?
and watch it because it's necessary for life. Okay, next question.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I have so many more questions. Keep going, Tova,
Uh,
before I break in.
what is, next question. What is on your nightstand?
Oh my God. I knew this was coming too. I knew this question was coming too. And I thought I was prepared. I'm not prepared. Like everything you can imagine is okay. There's a big difference between what is supposed to be on my nightstand and what actually is. So, what is supposed to be? My lamp, my alarm clock, my chapstick, and my water cup. What is actually there? All of the above, plus random mail and the Medusa crown I wore from Halloween because that never got put away, and, and a Suncoast Bank drawstring bag that I got at an event a couple of weeks ago that never got put away. So there you go. My chaos of life is on
Fantastic.
my nightstand.
Nice.
Oh my gosh, I love it. All right, question number 4. Who's at the top of your playlist right now?
Mm. So in terms of music or podcasting?
Oh yeah.
Ooh, both.
Ooh, okay. So I'm really not just kissing butt right now, but y'all are at the top of my podcast playlist. I'm not kissing butt.
Woohoo!
It's just the
That's
truth.
awesome.
We'll take it.
But on the top of my music playlist, always and forever will be John Williams. If you don't know who John Williams is, he is the composer of my childhood and
Everything.
probably yours too. So he's the guy who's the genius behind this musical scores for, oh my gosh, Jurassic Park, E.T., Jaws, Schindler's List, Star Wars. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Harry Potter, like all these
All of it.
amazing, amazing musical composition. Indiana Jones, stops. I need to stop. But anytime I feel like it, I listen to some John Williams.
Fantastic.
Okay, last, because I have so many things to say about that, but last question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received is to hire people better than me. And as a sidecar piece of advice, that because it came from the same person, hire people who actually care about the business, like legitimately do. And so the first person I hired, real quick, the first person I hired, George, gosh, he's been working for me like 5 years now, something like that, crazy. Steady the whole time. And I knew he was the one immediately because he was super passionate and asking so many great questions. And he was so smart technically. I'm like, he's going to be better than me. So I hired him.
That is such good advice. And it's good advice for life in your boundary setting behaviors, right?
Yes.
If you're gonna, and I know, Tova, we need to wrap up. If you're going to invite people into your life, they don't have to be, quote, better than you, but they need to bring something to your life.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So make sure that the people you're surrounding yourself with bring something to the table, and
they bring you up, not down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm not kidding. We're probably having you on again because I just want to ask you so many things.
Well, we do have one more question.
Oh, okay.
I know you sent us a ton of links and we'll include it, but tell people where they can find you.
Okay.
And follow you.
So the main hub is Flintstone Media. That's the umbrella company for all the things. Has nothing to do with the cartoon from back in the day. As much as I loved it and ate their vitamins, has nothing to do with them. Yep. But and I may or may not have a Lego set right there of said cartoon. But anyways, has nothing to do with that. But FlintstoneMedia.com is my podcast production company, and from there you can find all the things. So you can find links to Power Moms Network and to my shows and et cetera, et cetera.
Excellent. Well, we're going to share all of that in the show notes for everyone and on our socials. So you can find Jaime and every cool thing that she's doing, all of the success, I'm going to say it for you, that you've had for the last few years. So we're going to share that with everyone. We are so happy you were with us today. We're going to continue our conversation. We have one more episode of season 9 and we
end of 2023.
Yes, and the end of the year. So we'll be back next week, everyone. And until then, start asking yourself, if you haven't already, ask yourself, how is your heart? Ask a loved one, how is your heart today? And be ready to listen. It's a fascinating journey. But until then, everyone have a wonderful week and we'll talk to you all soon.
Thanks so much for listening to We Go Boldly podcast. We know you're busy and we love spending time with you.
If you enjoyed this week's episode, let us know. Head to Apple Podcasts right now to rate and review our show. While you're there, be sure to click that subscribe button.
Want more us time? Follow us on all the socials at Go Boldly Together.
Want even more us time? As in all the coaching pizzazz. Find us at goboldlyinitiative.com for all the info.
We will be back with more excitement, research, and deep thoughts next week.
Until then, keep on being the bold, brave, amazing people we know you already are.